Welcome back, everybody, to the Breakdown Podcast YouTube channel. My name's Corey, and in this video, with my buddy over here, Vic, we're going to be talking the new episode of The Bad Batch. That's episode 3.
Episode 3. So,
Vic,
you, sir,
yes.
I don't quite understand why you feel like this was not much of an episode, but
yes,
I do think that by the time we're done, you will see that there is some interesting things going on.
Okay. Before we get into that, let me tell the viewers, we do our show live on Twitch every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's at twitch.tv/MillerKing_51. The link is in the description below if you want to come by, check us out, join the conversation. We'd love to have you there. And also, while you're looking down there, hit the subscribe button for us, would you? And the like button and the bell button. Hit all those.
And be sure to leave us a comment.
It would help us out, and we would certainly appreciate it. So, Vic, what makes you think there was so much to talk about in this episode?
All right, Corey, let's break this down. Here's what happens in this episode. This episode starts out with the Bad Batch, our main group of characters, not including the traitor himself, are going through hyperspace. They end up they're talking. Tech is working on a gadget to help him communicate and read the information coming from their chips, and Echo is trying to fly the ship, which has obviously been damaged somehow. I'm not sure where the damage came from, because last episode we were just talking about the fact that they managed to fly right off the planet. Though I guess you could say that while it was landed, while they were trying to take off, it probably took some shots. But in general, especially when it comes to an attack class shuttle, they have armor that can withstand, hand blaster fire. It wasn't like they were taking shots from an Imperial cruiser or something. They were taking blaster shots. So it would be akin to a 9mm shooting at like a freaking warthog or something. But I digress. So as they're flying, the ship comes out of hyperspace. Tech is like, oh, it'll be fine, don't worry about it. And then it drops out of hyperspace out of nowhere, and they're heading towards this little dark, dusky planet, which they crash land on. And they figure out that they have a bad capacitor fuse that they need to get replaced.
Flux capacitor, to be specific.
Exactly. While all this is going on, they end up crashing. But when this happens, Wrecker hits his head, and he starts complaining about having a headache. And he's like, oh, my head's hurting. And then through the whole episode, he's got an issue with his head hurting. What do you mean, no?
Yep. I'm saying that's that chip in his head.
Yeah, of course it is. And that's where this is going. Like, it's getting you into place. This is a development episode. So you have to watch this. You're learning basically that Tech is very self-absorbed into whatever he is currently working on. Thus, the scanner. Echo is just trying to keep them afloat. Hunter is trying to work through his, trying to figure out why would Crosshair betray them. He's trying to get used to the fact that they've got Echo with them now. Sorry, not Echo. Omega with them now.
Omega. Which,
every time I listen to it, it sounds like she's actually saying Omega and not Omega, but I think it's her accent.
Probably.
But when they start talking about her, they all say it that way. So I'm not sure if it's that E is supposed to be inflected. So I think her name is Omega.
It's Omega. It's Omega.
But with that said, Hunter's trying to help, make sure that she understands she's part of the crew. She's part of the family. Wrecker is eating all of their food. He's like, dude, you need to chill out. There's 5 of us on this ship and we have a kid we need to take care of. You can't be eating all the food, dude. We don't know when we're going to have more. And that obviously causes some issues, for him. But the main thing that we have to watch out for is that, he's hit his head, something's going to happen. And I'm afraid that what's going to end up happening is that he's going to end up turning on them because the chip is going to mess with his mind. And I think when Tech puts that thing on his head, it's going to fritz out, and that's going to cause him to go haywire, and that's going to cause him to also go the way of Crosshair. And they're going to end up having to do something to save him. But again, this is all speculation. This is a complete filler episode.
Unfortunately.
They land on the planet. We'll go through there. They land on the planet. They try to fix the shuttle. As they're fixing the shuttle, they notice that there's something else. There's something out there. And they don't know what it is. And it ends up being this giant lizard dog looking thing that steals their capacitor and runs off with it. And Hunter and Omega take chase.
I don't think I could jump from planet to planet like they do in Star Wars. Simply because...
all the strange shit that's out there?
All the strange shit. Because you will get... there's gigantic creatures.
Yeah, you got crate dragons. You got...
No matter where you go. I'll just stay home.
Look,
Thanks.
the galaxy is a tough place. It's not easy.
Hey, Corey, you want to go? You want to go to the planet? Blah blah blah.
No, I'm good.
No, I'm good.
I'll stay home.
But I heard it's great. Nope.
So they take chase after the monster. Hunter goes after it, and Omega follows him, even though he told her stay here. And she does the same thing. She starts pulling that mimic move of hers, and that's the ability that I'm going to call her. She's a mimic.
She was on the ship prior to going out there with the mask on. Like she had already seen them how they operated, so she was practicing in there. So when it came time, once he got attacked and he got the mask knocked off, she knew how to do it.
So they go after him. They're tracking. He starts explaining. It starts giving you a little bit of a background as to who they are. Like he's like, oh well, we each have our own special ability. Mine's tracking. I've got super senses, and it makes it easy for me to do this. And he's tracking down the creature. He finds the creature, who then jumps on him and knocks off his mask, like Corey said, and he gets exposed to the atmosphere, which is not breathable for, I guess, humanoid life. And like Corey said, Omega puts his mask back on, and she follows that thing down the hole. I'm like, you're brave, kid, but you're also dumb. Like, like nobody goes climbing into a hole after a monster that just tried to eat your friend, but she does. She kind of, I think it was a good show of her courage. Like she's learning from them, and she's picking up. She's becoming more of a courageous person through everything that she's seeing them do and how they're interacting and working. So she climbs into the hole. She tracks the animal just like she kind of learned from Hunter, and she finds it in the hole and it attacks her. But my best guess is that it had used up all of the energy that it had gotten from the capacitor, because apparently this thing uses electricity or eats electricity or energy to sustain itself. And when she finally figures out why it's being so grumpy, she throws her flashlight at it like a dog bone. It grabs it and starts drinking the energy out of it, and it does that cool effect where it like lights up. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Here's my thing, though. If it stole the one that they had and drained all the energy, how did they have anything? There should have been anything there.
What do you mean?
When they put it back?
It's a capacitor.
What does that mean?
Basically, a capacitor is like a short-term battery. When you plug it into a system, it fills up with energy, and then it disperses energy
so they
to
can
other
put it
things.
Back in and it'll
right.
Back.
They put it back in place, and it creates it completes the circuit, and power flows through it. So
see the things you learn on this channel.
Yeah. So from one side, it starts out at a voltage, it builds up inside the capacitor, and then it dumps it out on the other end. It was filled when they put it on the ship. It was filled when they put it on the ship, but when it took it out, it sucked all the energy out of it. That's why it was dry and dusty looking when she found it. But putting it back in place would have fixed that. So as she climbs out, Hunter's coming to, they go back. And when they get back to the ship, they get moving, and good old Wrecker. He's so like goofy and like when he's not destroying shit, he's definitely like the heart of the team. You know what I mean? Like he's just this big happy oaf of a guy who likes everybody. And while she was gone, he went through and he made her a little room for herself, someplace that she could have of her own, because they didn't really have anything set up for her because they weren't expecting her. And he sets up a little room up in that the smuggler's hold that they were hiding in. and she has her own place now. And he gave her his little whoopee, his little stuffed animal thing that he had that he was looking for, that she saved for him when they left the ship. So that was pretty sweet. But like I said, they got off the planet. Everything seems to be okay. The problem is going to be Wrecker's hurt, and it's going to end up being a bad thing. I'm honestly trying to kind of wondering if they're going to go the route of slowly but surely they're going to start yanking each one of them back and eventually destroying them, because we have no real reference to them past wherever this ends. So it'd be interesting to see where they end up going with the story, and whether or not they just end up, ending these guys, or they end up flying off into deep space, never to be seen again.
They still have to show up on Mandalorian.
Well, not necessarily. We'll kind of get an idea of where that's going once we get to the stuff where Fennec shows up.
No,
so we'll see what happens.
That's true. Yeah.
The second storyline on this episode was Lama Su and Namaste. I think that's his name. I can never remember the Prime Minister's name. They are still trying to convince Tarkin that it's worthwhile to keep clone troopers in business with the Empire. And literally the only source of income, I think, for the Kaminoans is working the Empire angle and providing them with clones, because everything else seems to lean towards they need to be with the Empire. And through the course of the episode, the Prime Minister kind of leans towards that fact. The guy...
It's funny how, like, the whole war... Oh, God. It's like real life. The whole war is based on contracts.
Yeah, well, I mean, government contracts. Yeah. What can you do? And that's how big companies make their money. And Kamino is just a giant planet of a big company. I can't remember the guy's name, but he's an admiral with the Empire. He shows up. And he's like, "Hey, you're the guy who created the chain code, because we need to know that, apparently." And
that's probably going to come back later.
It will, because, like I said last episode, the whole thing about the chain codes is that they're trying to keep track of everybody's movements within the Empire. So if you are a citizen of the Empire, they give you a chain code. They can pay attention to where you're going, what you're doing. They put beacons on every ship that came in. That's why they were taking all the ships. They were putting on Imperial markers, so that if a ship ever came into the area, they would know exactly what ship it is, who the last owner of it was. They just basically created the DMV in Star Wars, and then they're tracking all the movements of all of the quote-unquote citizens of the Empire, so that if anyone causes any trouble, they know where they are, where they were, and who they were dealing with.
And if you remember on Mandalorian, when Boba was when he had to prove that he was Boba, and he did the little thing on his arm.
That was his chain code. Yep, that was a chain code for him. But also remember that in that when he was approached by the New Republic, and they were trying to scan the ship, and it didn't have a code.
Oh yeah,
it was because he had that ship. That ship was created before the Empire put codes on everything. So this is all kind of tying. That's why I'm saying this episode, though it didn't do a lot, there's a lot of storytelling in this episode, because all of that stuff is directly connected to everything else down the line. And I'll get to another really interesting thing, another interesting kind of guesstimation on my part of what's going to happen. But Tarkin is still, like I said, he's praising this guy. "Oh, you did such a great job with your chain codes, make things easier." And then that same guy is like, we can cut costs. Again, it's coming down to bean counters. And this guy's basically a bean counter. He's like, "Yeah, we can cut costs if we just use a volunteer army rather than a clone army. We can save a ton of money." And he's like, "Yeah, but we have to get them all to volunteer. We have to get them all trained, and that's going to take time, and we don't have that time right now." And that's when Namasu is like, "Yeah, exactly. That's why you need our clones." because you don't have time to be doing all that. So, but then obviously Tarkin's like, you know what? I don't trust the clones. I don't really want them, but it would work out well if we use the clones to train the new army. And remember, I told you last week that that's what they ended up doing, is using the clone army to train the new stormtroopers, and then they put them out to pasture. So that part right there, it just tells you exactly what they're doing. They have the new stormtrooper elite, a group of 5 soldiers. Seems very familiar. That they bring in.
Well, it was 5.
Yeah, that they bring in, and they're like, hey, these are our first group of stormtroopers, basically. This is the first elite corps of stormtroopers. They've been semi-trained, but they want to have Crosshair lead them on a mission, and Tarkin sends them back to the planet that Saul Guerrero is hiding his little rebellion on, his rebels on, and have them clear that out. And he's like, well, let's see if this group will do better than the Bad Batch did. And they send them off to the planet. This was probably the darkest thing I've seen them do in a long time on Star Wars. The books and stuff have some pretty dark shit in it, but this is like, wow. They get to that planet.
I mean, it's no different than what happened to Luke's aunt and uncle.
Yeah, but you did not see see any of that really happen so much. Like, well, this,
no, you didn't see that. You didn't see this happen either, technically.
Well, you saw them shoot. He shot the guy. He shot the chick. Like, he just flat. Like, I'm talking about not the act of what they did, but the brutality behind it. It wasn't a matter of like, oh, they burned him up. Yeah, we know they do that. That's what they did to Aunt Beru. But they literally, like, the brutality of how they did it with no real remorse or consequence to their action is what I'm talking about. So as they're heading to the planet, or just before they leave, they're talking about how much better the Empire is than the Republic, because the Empire took them in, they gave them food, shelter, they gave them a purpose, they made things better for them. That's why these guys were volunteering to be stormtroopers. This is a story arc. Because stormtroopers, like, you have the clone troopers, right? Then you have stormtroopers, and everyone's always wondered, why would you want to be a stormtrooper? Like, it doesn't seem like anyone would want to be a stormtrooper, but this answers that question. Like, they were so tired of being ignored and not taken care of by the Republic, which is why the Republic fell, because they weren't paying attention to their people, and that gave the Emperor the time and the chance to slip in and create the Empire. And this is kind of like that, they emphasize the fact that that's why the Empire was able to take over from the Republic. And it really kind of emphasizes that to that point. So they go on the mission. On the mission, the jerk, there's always this one guy in there that just has to be. There's always got to be one. There's always that one guy, and he's like, yeah, nobody likes clones. Clones are dumb, and yeah, we're better. And Crosshair's just sitting there like, you dumb mother. You wait. Give me a reason.
They only did this just so they could justify shooting him later.
It's just like it's exactly like Suicide Squad. There's always that one guy that they have to blow his head off with the bomb to prove that there's a bomb. It's that. Yeah. But what it also does is it shows that it gives us the true visual that Crosshair is not playing games. So this guy's giving Crosshair a bunch of crap, and he's just sitting there taking. He's like, yeah, whatever, dude, whatever. I'm the superior officer. I'm the superior warrior here. Let's just go get our job done. And they've been working on him since the start. First episode, second episode, they went in and they started messing with his chip, and they've been augmenting that chip and making it stronger every time, every day probably. And at this point, it's just making him more and more bad. And he goes to the planet, he sees what's going on, and he's like, where's Saul Guerrero? And they're like, we don't know. We have no idea. And he's just like, pew, pew, goodbye. Okay. Pew, pew. So sad. Bye-bye. And the elites are like, we're not an execution squad. We shouldn't be doing this. We can't do this. And then that's where you realize, okay, so there is a certain level of humanity within the Stormtroopers, and they feel like they have some kind of an option until it's taken away because he just shoots the guy. And he's like, anybody else? And they're like, nope, we'll go ahead and toast these guys. We're fine, thanks. And they annihilate.
They didn't like him anyway.
Yeah, they annihilated the entire crew. They're like, that dude was a jerk. It's fine. And they burn him down. Upon returning to the ship, he gets congratulated for completing the mission. And they're all just like, okay, this is just messed up. And I think at that point they realize that they may have made a mistake. And I feel like it was dark, dude. It was just dark. But they get back to the barracks. He walks in there. They're staying in the old Bad Batch barracks. And he kind of sits down, and you can see it. Like, I think he's sad. Like, I really think that, like, he's not used to not being with his brothers. Like, he's used to being with them and always, and working with them and being around them. And even though he's that, like, grumpy brother that nobody really wants to talk to because he's just a jerk, he's still family to them, and he misses them. And you can see that when he goes back.
They're going to end up making you feel bad for the creepy one.
I think what's going to end up happening is the creepy one's going to end up... So I hate this. I hate that this could be the possibility. But Wrecker goes off because of the chip, right? He goes bad. Crosshair ends up coming in and realizes he's gone bad and does something to save him and sacrifices himself in order for Wrecker to go back to being Wrecker because he realizes how bad this whole thing has gotten for him. That's what I see coming. Somehow, some way. That's my prediction. Okay. I'm not sure if it'll work out.
Timestamp it, whatever that is right down there.
2147. But that's my prediction as to what I think is going to end up happening is that they're going to... That's why I don't think these guys are actually going to survive past episode 3. I feel like this episode 4. Like by the time they get past Solo Rogue One, these guys are going to be out of the story. They're going to be gone. Is what I feel.
So how long do you think this show's going to last then? 1 season?
I mean, I think they can probably get 4 or 5 seasons out of it if they wanted to, because the time frame between episode 3 and episode 4, there's multiple years between there. There's 20 years in there, 18 years, right? So Luke was 18. Luke was 18 in New Hope. He was just born at the end of episode 3, so there's 18 years in there. There's a good amount of time between there, and there's a lot of story to be told inside of there. So, I mean, it's very possible that that's where it ends up, because if you remember, by the time Rogue One rolls around, Saul Guerrero is a very old, decrepit man, and in this, he's not, and that's the same canon, same storyline. So that timeline is rather it's set. It's a set time frame, but they can do a lot inside that time frame, in my opinion. The last thing to talk about on this episode is the fact that the Kaminoans are in trouble. Not only are they creating the clones that may not be bought by the Empire, but the clones that they are making are not very good right now. They make mention of the fact that the prime specimen is degrading. So the DNA that they got from Jango Fett is not very good anymore. Like they've diluted it. So they've used it so much that what's coming out of that sample now is not quite as good as the first set of clones that came out. So they're going to need a fresh, some sort of a fresh donor to make more clones that are actually fully capable, like Jango's original clones.
Who do you think that could be?
I don't know. Who do you think it could be?
I think it could be Yoda.
And
Baby Yoda that we see in Mandalorian is his clone. Because we've already saw on that show, we've already seen the logos from the Kaminoan lab.
Yeah.
We've already seen that on the show, and they already knew about Baby Yoda. I have a feeling this all ties in to that.
So, I knew you were going to say that. I foresaw you thinking this was happening. But I don't think that's what's going to happen.
We'll see.
I think that they're going to try to find another highly skilled bounty hunter to use to create a clone. I want them to try to make a clone, and I do believe that they're going to try to make a force sensitive clone, because I feel like what they're going to do is they're going to say, look, we may not be able to make stormtroopers for you anymore because you're going to start hiring them here, but you can't get force sensitive people to join your army. But we can create a force sensitive person that we can train to be in your army, and that's worth big money to the Empire. But I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to use.
That's where Baby Yoda comes into play, because they end up using his DNA and infuse it with their other clones to hope that they get the Force thing out of them, and boom.
There's no way for them to get Yoda's DNA.
Hey, I don't know how this stuff works.
How are you going to get Yoda's DNA? Like, he had to stay there on that planet in order to get all what they needed in order to do it.
Here's what
Yoda
happens.
has already exiled himself.
He goes down there. He's trying to hide out, and because he's friends with them from way back in the day. They all went to college together, and while he's there, he's drinking on some blue milk and sets his cup down. He leaves it there. When he leaves, they take the DNA off the cup, and boom, they start to work from there. He doesn't even know that
definitely not it. What's going on with Baby Yoda? In my opinion, Grogu is a sample. They need Grogu's DNA because he has the most concentrated force energy within him, midichlorians. So they need his blood, his sample, his DNA in order to help them create the clones they need. They do not want to clone. What are you going to do with an army full of Yodas?
Dude.
A bunch of mini stormtrooper Yodas. No, they're looking for a way to they're looking for a way to make. That's not
two,
one.
Two.
It was three. Oh, by the way, the episode that we were talking about was episode 2, is when he goes to Kamino and talks to Namaste and Lamasu, or whatever the hell they is. But anyway, I think that the whole Baby Yoda thing is just them trying to extract Force DNA from something, knowing that that race has the highest concentration of it and that he's a good specimen for it. But I feel like that's why we saw all of those human test tubes in that lab, is because they've been working on that the entire time. So they've obviously done something, and there's a ton of stories that could be run from. They could be making a clone. They could canonize
the Emperor.
They could canonize Starkiller, which would be freaking amazing. Starkiller was a disciple of Darth Vader who he kind of adopted, and then he died, and they cloned him, and they created a bunch of clones of him, and he was like the first force sensitive clone that was created. So they're definitely going to run in somewhere in that route. They're going to create some specialized version of a thing, but I think that they're going to look for another bounty hunter. They're not going to be looking for Yoda. They're gonna pull up some other DNA and try to make another one. Maybe they're gonna try to find Boba.
You heard it here first. They are going to try and find ways to clone Yoda. So on behalf of Vic,
that's me.
I'm Corey. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.
See ya.